Welcome to the SolidWorks electrical enhancements for ECAD solutions. I am Charles Mayu, the product manager for SolidWorks Electrical, and I'll be touching on SolidWorks Electrical. We have Scott Davis, who is the product manager for SolidWorks PCB. He'll be presenting on SolidWorks PCB. And then we also have Glenn White, our director of product management, who will be touching on a relatively new product for us, which is Enterprise Harness, which is specific for basically electrical harness design, and we'll touch on that at the end. First off, we're going to start off with SolidWorks PCB, and Scott Davis will be introducing you guys some awesome enhancements for that product for 2020. Then we'll go over SolidWorks Electrical with myself, and what I chose to do with SolidWorks Electrical is we're actually going to touch on the last 3 years. I kind of picked out a top 10 of my last enhancements from the last 3 years, and we'll kind of go over what those top 10 are. And then once again, Glenn will be finishing up with our Enterprise Harness, which is a partner product that is specifically for harness design and harness documentation. All right. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and jump and pass this over to Scott and make him presenter here, so that way he can show us what's new in SolidWorks PCB.
Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. Like Charles mentioned, my name is Scott Davis. I'm the SolidWorks PCB product manager here at Hawk Ridge, and we're going to be talking about the SolidWorks PCB and some SolidWorks 2020 enhancements. Got a couple major enhancements for PCB in 2020. These have been on the roadmap for a while, very important to SolidWorks, and we're thrilled that they're now available in the 2020 version. The first one being, we all know that SolidWorks Mechanical has a fantastic interface with our PDM database management tools. So we now have leverage for PCB and PDM file management with automation capabilities. So PDM data management, you're going to have workflows for your electronics and your PCBs. You can release your manufacturing files in there, pass them over to purchasing, and this is a full bidirectional integration for SolidWorks PCB. The second enhancement is also very important in today's technology. We now have flex-based product design and collaborative workflow. This is going to give you a seamless, intelligent ECAD MCAD collaboration. Flex design and visualization capabilities are in PCB and in SolidWorks. This is going to streamline your flex-based product design between electrical and mechanical. So today, for the PCB design data management workflow, you've got your SolidWorks PDM all ready for your SolidWorks CAD. You're storing all your files, you got all your users, you got your version controls. For the PCB product, we're using Subversion, we're using our PCB database, and you're storing your files typically local onto your drive, onto a network drive. Okay, so this is not really fully integrated. Each database management system is a little bit separate. So introduce the PDM workflow for PCB and data management. Your SolidWorks remains the same. Okay, you're still using PDM, you're storing all your parts, assemblies. So now we take that and we drop that over the top of SolidWorks PCB. That gives us this full electromechanical data management integration. So let's take a look at what these interfaces now look like inside of PDM and inside of your SolidWorks PCB application. Hawk Ridge has developed a SolidWorks PCB template where you can automatically create your PCB projects inside of PDM. Inside of the SolidWorks PCB tool, you're going to see a new menu where you can open files, check them in, check them out, get the previous version. That's now incorporated into SolidWorks PCB. The next big enhancement we talked about is the rigid flex and flex design capabilities. So there's basically two different methodologies. You can have a rigid flex hybrid, or you can go full pure flex. And what are some of the advantages of this technology? It's tremendous. First of all, it's lighter weight. It can be of higher uh, reliability, reducing cables, connectors, crimp-on pins, things like that. The flex boards can be produced in a real high quantity, which again reduces the cost. So we see a lot of flex-based products today. We actually dismantled an older camera, and you can see the amount of flex inside of this older camera. Typically interfacing the user buttons, uh, different connectivity to even the controller boards and the LCD displays. So quite a bit of flex in today's products. And actually the flex technology is the fastest growing technology in the PCB fabrication market. So some general product design challenges you have today. Generally for PCB, it's not a design problem. CAD tools have had this capability for many years. It's more about the specific features and functions for the design and the documentation for the PCB fabricator. But for mechanical, it's much more difficult. How do we figure out the lengths, the bends, the radiuses? And it's all mechanical required constraints. So we need to ensure everything folds correctly. So that can be very time consuming, difficult. You're going to have a poor model. Is your flex thickness correct? Are you seeing the components correctly? And oftentimes when you're building these, it requires a physical enclosure prototype to exactly determine your flex design requirements. So 90% of the challenges with flex is definitely in the mechanical environment. Today, you're sending over files, you're getting it in your mechanical, you can see that the flex is bent incorrectly, the angles are wrong, it doesn't fold correctly, how long does it need to be? And there's just a tremendous amount of this communication back and forth between mechanical engineers and electrical engineers. So how are you doing it today? Very antiquated. A lot of customers literally making paper dolls. You're cutting it out of paper, you're putting it inside your sample enclosure, you're figuring out the bends, and then you're feeding that information to your PCB designer. Or you're getting a step model from your CAD tool, and that's a static representation. We're not seeing automated bends, we can't change the bends in mechanical, so it's very cumbersome, takes a lot of time. Sheet metal design using SolidWorks, it's a little better, but it's limited. This data is not going to be automatically transferred to the PCB design tool. And then believe it or not, people are still using string. So you lay your string out in your enclosure, you pull it out, you lay it flat, now you got your overall length. And it's not so much about where the bends are, it's more about the length. Because if you design that flex too short, it's no good, and you've got to respin your design. Okay? So what we've introduced in SolidWorks 2020, first of all, the PCB tool now has the full rigid flex layer stack up capabilities. So you can have a full flex, you can have the hybrid, you're going to see the 3D folded visualization and the DRCs. In SolidWorks CAD, you're also getting that rigid flex PCB feature. You're also going to be able to fold it, unfold it, and visualize it like you can see in the bottom. We're bending this absolutely inside of SolidWorks. And this collaboration is done with the same exact PCB connector that's been part of SolidWorks PCB from day one. Okay, this gives you the integration. It's intelligent, it's seamless, and it's fully synchronized between your assembly and your PCB project. So what we've done here is we've expanded the workflows, right? So we're giving you full flex visualization capability in the PCB tool, which you see, and then we're also giving you that in SolidWorks CAD. Seamless integration significantly streamlines flex-based electronic product design workflow. It is definitely going to improve your productivity. The accuracy is 100% represented between the two applications, less time, reduce errors, many fewer prototypes, okay, and better communication. It's real time. So the final takeaways here are that Flex and Rigid Flex is a technology that's here to stay. Okay, we're introducing tools that will streamline the process and help you get to your prototype markets much faster. You want to learn more about these products? Contact Hawk Ridge. You can visit our website and you can see all the new 2020 release updates for the SolidWorks portfolio. And that's what's new in SolidWorks PCB 2020. Thank you, and I will pass this back to Charles.
All right, thanks, Scott. That's awesome. Those flex circuits, it's something that people have been wanting to do for a long time. So it makes a huge difference there for us. All right, so I know Scott was kind of a couple there with one big change for us. So I'm going to jump into basically our SolidWorks electrical, which is up next. And I have my top 10, which I'm going to cover here for us. And we're going to go ahead and jump into that. So here's kind of the top 10 I chose from the last 3 years. We've got our top 2018 enhancements, our top 2019, and then our top 2020 enhancements. For those of you that have been using SolidWorks Electrical for a long time, you can see there's some great improvements there. And what we're going to do is touch on each one of these individually. So 2018, my top 3 was customization of classifications. This was one of the biggest ones from the beginning that people asked for. We got terminal block accessories, so we can now insert those dividers, insert the end blocks, that type of stuff in there. And then one of the bigger ones too that a lot of people don't know exist is project attribute styles. So let's go ahead and take a look at these individually here right now. So our custom classifications, it now allows us to create these custom classifications. Now the cool thing about the custom classifications is that it gives us a notification that it is custom. We get this little little red profile of a person there on that classification, letting us know that it's a custom classification. Now, if you're not familiar with the SolidWorks electrical interface, it's going to be on your library tab, and then it's under the classification manager, right? So we come into the classification manager, there's a button for new class right here. So we can create new top level classes and new sub level classes also. I've created some options here that work out great for me, specifically in my connectors. I've added like elements for symbols as an option here. This works out great for my connector symbols, my dynamic stuff like that. So I've got some other stuff in here, harness items, HMIs, legacy symbol stuff, networking options. So gives us the ability to create these classifications for components that don't fit inside of the ones that we had to begin with, right? So if we create new ones, we just click new classification, fill out the information for that classification. Obviously, description is the first one you want to do. Now, if you guys are familiar with the SolidWorks electrical classifications, each one had unique user data or unique manufacturer data attributes for each one of them. You can actually define those for those classifications now also. Unfortunately, we can't create unique ones, but we can use the existing ones. And you might want to make sure you use the same ones that are there for the other ones for other classifications, just to be aware of that. All right, so that was one of the big ones for us in our 2018 there was that custom classifications, right? So it creates us, we also can add our default root, default 3D part file, all that extra stuff that goes with those components. All right, so terminal strip accessories. So we have the ability to add accessories into our terminal strip now. So it's just a simple from our terminal strip editor, go to insert and then insert accessories. And like I'd mentioned, these can be used for those divider plates, keeping your voltages away from each other, your neutrals, your grounds, all the stuff away from each other, adding end stops, end clamps, that type of stuff. And the nice thing about it is it does show up on the terminal strip drawings. As you can see here, I inserted a divider blank in here for this Wago terminal, and it placed it in our drawing also as being a divider terminal there. So that was a great enhancement in 2018 also. And then one of the bigger ones that a lot of people don't know about is project attribute styles. All right, so this gives us the ability to change the font settings on attributes on all symbols in a project the attributes and title blocks, all that stuff, without having to edit the unique individual symbols and attributes, right? So in this case, say I wanted to change the font and the size used on all of my symbols in this project. Now, the things that we have to do about this, though, is, let's go ahead and close that out, is we have to go into our project and go to our project configuration. So the first thing we see here is there is a attributes tab here, right? So first off, you'd think you'd come in here, grab the attribute, and you can add a custom attribute, add your symbol attribute, add your title block attribute, right? So if I come in symbols and say grab my tag attribute, so any place, any symbol that has the tag attribute, I can say, let's change that. Now, if I just add that, the unfortunate thing is I can't change the text style, but I can set the height, right? So I can change the height. Now, to change the text style, we have to go to our project setting, and down here we have drawing styles. So we actually have to define a drawing style is what we have to do now. So we'll go ahead and click apply on this and go ahead and click cancel to get out of it. But coming down to our configuration, first thing we got to do is go to our drawing styles. So we got to come in here and we have to create a new one inside of our project. So I can say new one. I can give it whatever indication that I want have it. So I can create ones that are in the application level or project level, right? And what we got in here, we've got layers, we got line styles, we got text styles, we've got leader styles, that type of stuff. I'll touch on leaders. That's a 2020 enhancement. But text styles, what we do, come in here, we can add new text style. Let me say tag, text style. We can change the font to something different that we want, the standard, and then the height, we can say it's 0.1 on our height, click OK, and that's what I defined there, right? And then come back into our project configuration, come down to our drawing styles, invoke that specific drawing style. Now when I go to my attributes, I can actually define that as being the tag attribute and apply that. Now everywhere that there's a tag, it updated that with that text that I chose and the height that I chose there for it. So it's a great way to make changes to a project as a whole without having to edit every single individual instance or every individual symbol that you have within your project. Works great for title blocks also if you just want to make a quick change to your single project for that. And you can set this up as part of your project template. So that way, if you want to use specific, fonts that your company uses, you can definitely set that up in your project template. So that way, when you just start off, it's already there. And as you place your symbols, it'll update, and it works out phenomenal for managing that type of stuff. All right. So there's our project attribute styles, which works great. So just a review really quick of our top 2018 enhancements was custom classifications, which was a huge one for people. Our second one was terminal block accessories, right, which is another good one. And then the third one that a lot of people don't keep in mind and know about is our project attribute styles and keeping that in squared away for us. All right. So let's take a look at what was 2019's top enhancements. We've got improved dynamic connector symbol options. We've got our project dimension units, and then we also got black box connection point symbol options, right? So those are kind of the three big ones I thought of for 2019. So with our improved dynamic connector symbol options, we've got a couple of them. We can now add a zigzag break for split symbols. So if you have a very large connector, some of the 38999 connectors can get up there pretty large, 37 pins or more. You may need to split that connector across multiple drawings. Well, in the past, we had to do some adjustments using some tricks using the symbols that we've used on the top and bottom for our text and doing breaks in that. Now we just got a simple checkbox there for turning that on. We can turn off rounded corners also. So you can do your plug and socket without having to do a static symbol for one and having the rounded corners for your second one, right? So we've got options right there from the insert symbol command or insert the dynamic symbol command, which is use rounded corners, and also hide zigzag or show zigzag for showing the break across pages. We also have additional options in the actual configuration manager. which is the rounded corner radius we can now control. Before in previous years, it was set to a static size of 1/4 inch or 5 millimeters. So now it is a actual user input side of that. We also have pin side, so you can define whether the pin is on the left or right of the symbol. You can also define how many connection points per circuit symbol. So if you want to pass through without having to create a special symbol for that, you can now say there's 2 circuits or 2 connection points per circuits. So you can actually do the pass through of your equipotential through the symbols now. So you can place your plug and your socket, drop them on the schematic on top of each other, and actually have those pass that equipotential through using those circuit connection points. All right, so that's a big one for the dynamic connector symbol. A lot of people use that, and it's a great way to work with those and not having to create custom symbols for every single option for your connectors. All right, so here's kind of the screenshot for the configuration. You can say, see we can control that rounded corner radius now there, and we also have the other options for other stuff with our circuit points there. And you can kind of see in the preview down here, there's a zigzag also showing there for the break with taking your symbols and splitting them across pages. All right, another big one that I found exciting is the project dimension units, right? So we can change the units for dimensions pulled into symbols and reports now. Before, if you guys were familiar with SolidWorks Electrical, all the values were stored in millimeters in the database. So when you brought in a connection label that had wire length associated with it, it would bring it in as millimeters. Unfortunately, that's just the way it was. But now we can actually bring in and set our dimension units to be metric or imperial, and it will actually pull that into our drawings for us and show that. And that's right here under dimension units. All right, so we got drawing unit standard and dimension units. So right now it's at millimeters. We can say, no, let's go to inch and foot, and then that will actually convert everything over to inch and foot throughout the whole project. So if we have any reports or any symbols that are pulling in those lengths for wires and those values for the wires, it'll bring it in as inch or and feet versus meters and millimeters. All right, so it's just a simple option from within the project configuration right on the first general page there. All right, so let's get back to our PowerPoint here. All right, so it's just a simple option right there, dimension units, and making that simple change to the symbol there. All right, so another big option here was black box connection points. All right, so what we can do now is we can specify a specific symbol for use with connection points on black box symbols. So it gives us the ability to do that. And what we get out of this is the ability to create extra custom information. If you just use the standard black box terminal, all you get is just the terminal indicator, right? So you just get the number from the terminal, right? Whereas with using the symbol, we can actually define other attributes to display with that terminal, mnemonic, other information that you'd want, typical that you get in any of our symbol editors and all that other stuff. Okay. So there we go. We've got that with that. So once again, to recover or go over our 2019 enhancements was, improved dynamic connector symbol options, our project dimension units, being able to change between metric and imperial for that. And then black box connection point symbol option gives us the ability to add in extra attributes for those symbols. You can actually add, graphics to that if you wanted to for those symbol locations. All right. And then end all be all what we got this year, which was our 2020 enhancements. We're going to take a look at those really quick. First one is leaders. That was one of the biggest complaints from the beginning for a lot of people is that we didn't actually have a general leader tool inside of SolidWorks electrical schematics, right? So we've got the ability to create leaders now. We've got user rights profile. That's another big one that came about. And then we've got report row numbers. That's a big one too. Before we had to do some SQL magic to get it to actually give us an item number or a row number in our reports. And then one of the other big ones that plays into the aerospace industry, into consumer products, is wire, cable, linear, mass options. Especially for people doing UAVs and stuff like that, stuff that's flying, they want to be able to calculate their wire, cable, mass. So we've got those 4 options. So for leaders, let's take a look at that one really quick. Basically, we have the ability to add a leader to our drawings, which is kind of cool. So it's basically as simple as, from your draw tab, there is a text leader, a block leader, and what you get with that. So let's take a look at that really quick. So we'll go ahead and close this. Let me go ahead and open up my 2D cabinet layout here with several of my components. Now, if I wanted to add extra information to this, right from my cabinet layout or my draw tab, we do have our standard text leader or our block leader. Now, a standard text leader is just going to be that. It's a standard text leader, your starting point, where you want to go to, and kind of draw that out, and then what's your text, right? So just create your simple text like that. You can play that, drop that in there, apply that. Now under the properties, we have our text height, our text standard, all that is available in the properties for that leader, right? So we can define that. One of the cooler ones though too is this block leader. Allows me to basically do the same thing, but this is our way of managing and setting the ability to do numbers, right? So typical balloons that we would do inside of a SolidWorks drawing, right? So we've got our tag number and our view number, right? So we can come in and say our tag number. What's our tag? That's 03FU1. So we can go that, instead of having the standard text there, we can actually draw and place those values. And then view number, if I had my row numbers for I could put in what value that is for my row, right? So I can say that's item 1, and it's got that information. So it's just text, but I can double click on it, come back in and edit and modify that at the same time. And this also has text styles and all that stuff available there for it also. So there is standards down here. You can open up your preview. You can create a new standard. You can create shortcuts, that type of stuff. And it's just going to be what text is in it, the text height, that type of stuff is going to be inside of your styles manager for your leaders. Okay. So great for adding those balloons that we normally see and use on our drawings. Another big one for us is user rights profiles. Now, if you guys are familiar, if ever tried setting up user rights inside of SolidWorks Electrical, in the past, what you had was 4 groups or 5 groups that you had to put someone in, right? So you had administrative, library manager, project editor, and then project contributor, right? And they were set defined roles, and a user can only be in one role. But now we actually can create a new profile and add specific functionalities to those profiles. So now your project manager can also be a library manager. You can just set those information or those specific roles. Or if you really want to lock someone down, you can just give them bare minimum to be able to do what they need to do. So creating those user rights allows you to lock stuff out, prevents people from making changes where they're not supposed to, and adding that ability to it. So being able to define our own profiles and assign people to those profiles, tremendous step forward with the user rights capabilities inside of SolidWorks Electrical. All right. Report numbers, report row numbers. So this has been a big question for a lot of people is that I want to add item numbers to my reports. So we have now an option inside of the report configuration manager, and that's add row numbers. And that simply is what it does, is it adds numbers to our rows, or added a column. You can have item number in there, report row, first row is 1, and counts down, right? So everything else, your sort and break, is going to be based off all your other information, and it's just going to add that row or item number to that first row, and starting with 1, count down all the way through. So we can get something more similar to the mechanical bill of materials that most people are accustomed to, right? So we take a look at our reports here, say our bill of materials here, right? Right now I've got it broken up by manufacturer. Maybe I don't want it be broken like that. So I can come into my reports. So bill of materials grouped by manufacturer, come into my properties for this, and I can make a quick, simple change to this. So we'll come to our columns. First one we're going to do is go ahead and add our row number column. So the report row, and I'm just going to put in item number, right? And then I'm just going to change my sort and break. I'm not going to break by manufacturer. I'm going to go ahead and pull out manufacturer. We'll keep BOM reference in there, order, and then COM tag, right? So we'll keep it sorted by that. We'll go ahead and apply that, close. So now I've got item number in there, 1 through 17. And if I update my drawings or generate my drawings, you'll see what it's going to do and look on our actual report inside of our drawing. We take a look at our, close that down, take a look at our bill of material again. Now we've got our item number column there, and we can use that to correlate back to our other components, right? So we can say that those are the same component between our drawings. Okay, so there's our report row numbers. All right, and the last one is our wire/cable linear mass option. So a lot of our customers have asked for this, so we can use this to calculate the wires, the mass of wires and cables, and it's literally just a linear mass is what we're going to set up inside of our wire styles, right? So it's going to be, pounds per foot, pounds per inch, kilograms per millimeter or meter, whatever it might be. And all it's really going to do is do the calculation for us to give us that ability to pull into our reports. All right. Oop. Hitting the wrong button here. So our top 2020 enhancements as leaders, getting those in there. Our user rights profiles, our row numbers on reports, and then our wire cable linear mass option is another giant one there for us. I have one more bonus enhancement for you guys for 2020, and this one is in regards to 3D. They actually added in and rewrote the routing option for 3D. We do now have an option to speed up our routing, and reports I'm getting is up to 800 times faster. And it is a little option when you route wires or cables or harness that's right here. Enhance large assembly performance. And what that basically does is it turns all of your components, other than the ones needed to route to lightweight. So in this particular assembly here, it would turn off everything except for my sketches that I use for my route path and the components the wires actually connect to. Everything else would be turned off, which greatly improves the performance. It does it for us automatically instead of having to manually tell it to or manually create these configurations with all the components suppressed to help speed up that routing of those components. Like I said, I've been told it's up to 800 times faster. They've got some huge numbers that SolidWorks has tested with, up into the thousands of wires range, taking it from like 8 hours down to an hour. So it's done some phenomenal improvements on that side of things. All right, so that is all I had for our SolidWorks electrical enhancements. Now there's a great source for them. If you guys aren't familiar with where to find the enhancements for SolidWorks electrical, they are actually in the help menu and in the help for SolidWorks electrical. Now it is a separate help file than the standard SolidWorks help file. So if you come into SolidWorks electrical and it's the new features right here, it does list out all the other features and enhancements for the year. So you can see those are there. And then there also is a handful of them in the what's new documentation available from SolidWorks when you install the new version also. So there's your two resources for finding those. I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Glenn White at this time for us to go into enterprise harness.
All right, thank you very much, Charles. As we're changing over here, I wanted to highlight that we are taking your questions. There's a question panel built into the GoToWebinar interface, and I'd encourage you to share anything that you want to have clarified or additional questions that you do have. I wanted to thank Dave and Jim, who've shared questions already. Dave asked about a recording of this webinar, and we will be packaging up a recording and making that available to you. We'll share information about how it is available in a follow-up email. And Jim asked about systems of units and noted that we were working in inches. With SolidWorks Electrical, we have full control over the unit system we wish to use, so we can adapt all that stuff as needed. But as we're preparing these presentations, we try to summarize everything that's new and changed in the software and in the market over the last sort of 12 months. And one big change that we had in the beginning of this year was us at Hawkridge Systems bringing on a new product to handle harnessing and electrical harness design. And that tool is called Enterprise Harness. But the reason we were out looking for a new package is the creation of harnesses is a really common issue for people across the market. It's a really challenging thing for a couple of key reasons. And before going to those reasons, just to clarify and lay out the market, you know, SolidWorks Electrical is a supremely powerful 2D schematic design tool. SolidWorks PCB again is a fantastic 2D PCB schematic and layout capture tool. And both of those have 3D elements to them. The SolidWorks PCB connector will put those 3D files into SolidWorks, and SolidWorks Electrical 3D will route point-to-point wiring very effectively, just like the example that Charles had a screenshot of just previously. But when it comes to branched multi-wire harnesses, there isn't a really compelling solution in the SolidWorks environment, especially as those harnesses get complex. And what makes that hard is that, you know, the wiring of harnesses typically has organic shapes that mechanical CAD tools just aren't good at. If there are large assemblies that we're harnessing and routing between, the overhead of those can be extreme. And this is a task that falls somewhere in the middle between electrical design and mechanical design. And so we have a lot of electrical engineers trying to do their routing in SolidWorks, and mechanical engineers that don't have their heads around the electrical components. So it can be a really challenging workflow. So the tool that we've gone out and brought into our portfolio is called Enterprise Harness. It's a third-party SolidWorks Gold Partner product that is fairly extensively used in other markets, and we've been testing it for over 2 years now, and we feel it's a really novel solution to those design challenges. It's a very low overhead representation of the 3D model, and we do the routing in a separate interface. It's much more lightweight than doing that in SolidWorks. It's very, very simple to use, and it's very, very easy to manipulate the route with simple push-pull commands. We believe it doesn't matter what discipline you're part of, you should be able to complete these tasks within the Enterprise Harness environment. It's got some great robust tools for managing the data and the libraries of your connectors and wires and all the preferences you want to use, and it maintains a direct connection with a from-to list generated from your electrical schematic tool, which we recommend is SolidWorks Electrical. This tool Also has a full detailing environment, allowing you to route, to flatten your harness drawings in either a simple schematic or a almost pictorial cable assembly drawing style. So it's very, very powerful in enabling you to get the manufacturing documentation you need to produce the harnesses that you wish to work with. So again, we're sharing that as a development that it's changed in our portfolio. We have more information available on this tool and the SolidWorks PCB and electrical tools. But other than that, we do really appreciate you all taking the time out today to see what's new in the SolidWorks 2020 and some of the previous releases in the electrical CAD portfolio.